بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. This actually you can't read it on the stream because it will be the other way around. Today is history, and we've done the history which starts from 106, history of Islam, until 116. So we reach 116. Who attended the previous one, 115? Ottoman Empire? You did. Ottoman Empire? No? Good. So you all have to go back, when we go back to the beginning. The history of Islam, I divided that into these, starting by the life of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ before Revelation, from 570 to 610. Then the life of the Prophet ﷺ from 610 to 633, the prophethood. And then the life of the four Khalifas, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, and 633, 663. And then the Umayyad dynasty in Damascus, in Syria, from 663 to 750. And then the Abbasid dynasty in Iraq, and obviously all the Muslim world at that time, from Spain to Turkey, from 750 into 847. It has multiple phases in Abbasi because they were the golden era, and there's less area, less, more fragmented state. So it's phase 1, 2, and 3. Then from 1187 to 1517, there were multi-states, small countries here and there and everywhere. And then from 1517 to 1916, the Ottoman Empire. And then from 1916 till now, the current era, when the Ottoman Empire lost the war in 1914 to 1918. They lost the war, the First World War, and against them was the Turkish Empire, fighting the French and the British. So then when they lost the war, they divided the country the Turkish Empire ruled between themselves. So the French took Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and Syria and Lebanon. The British took Egypt and Sudan, Palestine and Jordan, Yemen, Iraq, and Pakistan, Afghanistan, and the country. They went also to China and things. But for the Muslim countries, this is how they divided it. And the Italian took Libya. And the German went to middle of Africa and southern Africa now.
What about Ethiopia and Somalia?
I think British were occupying that. Now, most Muslim countries obviously became controlled by the British and the French and Italian and German. And Spain, they took Spain, Muslims stayed in Spain for 800 years in Spain. So the Christian came back to Spain, took it earlier than that. The Turks were actually in Greece and other European countries, and they lost them. But in 1916, when the Turkish Empire disappeared and gone, only Turkey remained in their hand. There were, in the Middle East, there were a king in Mecca and Medina called Sharif Hussein. So Sharif Hussein was promised by the British and the French that he will have control over the Middle East. And Sharif Hussein had 3 sons, Abdullah, Faisal, and Ghazi. And he helped the French and the British get rid of the Turkish Empire. In return, they gave him the Middle East, Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Saudi. So he stayed in Saudi, in Mecca. Abdullah went to Jordan and Palestine, became a king there. Faisal became a king in Syria and Lebanon, and Ghazi became a king in Iraq. British and French, and they made the Western think. They had this Lawrence of Arabia, and he played the trick then, and he managed to get rid of Sharif Hussein, and they handed Saudi, the Arabian Peninsula, to King Abdulaziz Al Saud, who established Saudi Arabia at that time. Now, the French came to Syria and Lebanon, and Faisal disappeared. The British went to Iraq, and Ghazi disappeared. The British went to Jordan and Palestine, but they had different plan. So they kept Abdullah, and Abdullah had his son Talal. At that time, they gave Palestine to the Zionists, who were a political movement of a Jewish community. And some way or another, Abdullah was killed. Some say the British killed him, some say Palestinian killed him, some say the Jewish killed him. We don't know who killed him. Talal, his son, they said he was mentally ill, so he wouldn't rule Jordan. So Jordan was handed to his son, Hussein. He was 6 years old. So his uncle took charge of Jordan until King Hussein became adult enough and ruled Jordan. King Hussein died 15 years ago, I think, and his son Abdullah became the king of Jordan, the current king of Jordan. Now here, King Faisal disappeared. The French occupied Syria between 1920 to 1945. And there were few presidents while the French were in charge. And then Syria took its freedom in 1945, and Lebanon. And there were a sequence of presidents ruled Syria. And I'll stop here to go back to Palestine. Adam, alayhi salatu wassalam, his 10th generation was Nuh, alayhi salatu wassalam. And Nuh, when he asked Allah to flood the earth, because all those people who were kafirin, they will never believe. And Allah Azza wa Jal said to them, to Nuh, none of them will believe. So Allah Azza wa Jal said, Nuh said, okay, get rid of them. There will be a waste, and Allah drowned them in the flood. Nuh had 3 children when he landed with the ship. One called Sam, one called Ham, and one called Yafar. So these 3 children, one of their Sam's children was Ibrahim, alayhi salatu wasalam. Ibrahim was born in Iraq, and when they threw him in the fire, he actually walked out of the fire unharmed. And Allah Azza wa Jalla said to him, go to live in Bilad Canaan, the land of Canaan. It will be yours and your children after you. And Bilad Canaan, which we call Palestine. Now, Bilad Canaan should be owned by the children of Ibrahim. Who are the children of Ibrahim?
Ismail and Ishaq.
Yeah, it's on the board. Yeah, Ibrahim and Ishaq. Ibrahim didn't have children from his wife Sarah, the first wife. No.
Do they say that the Jews came from...
Hold on. Let me finish the class and then let me finish explaining myself. He had no children from Sarah. He went to Egypt to invite Egyptians to believe in Allah Azza wa Jal. But he said to his wife, when we meet the king, because she was really stunningly beautiful, this is why Yusuf was taken from his grandmom, say that you are my sister in Islam. She didn't say my sister in Islam, but she said, I'm his sister. So the king took her to marry her, and she prayed to Allah Azza wa Jal not to allow the king to touch her. So every time he tried to touch her, got paralyzed. 3 times he became very afraid of her. He thought that she was a demon or whatever. So he let her go, and he gave her gifts and things, including Hajar as a slave. So Hajar became a slave to Sarah, and she gave her as a gift to Ibrahim, alayhi salatu wasalam, to marry her. Probably he will have children from her, and he had his son Ismail. According to the law at that time, if you have a son, if you have a child, you become free. Your child is free and you become free. So Ismail was a son of a free woman after she gave birth to him. At that time, the law, if the father dies, the eldest son inherits him. And when Ibrahim died, who should inherit him? Ismail. Ismail in sequence will inherit Palestine. But they say that the Jewish say, no, his son was Isaac. It wasn't Ismail, because Ismail was the son of the slave. They bypassed the rules at that time. There's no rules now like this. Oh, slave, there's no slaves. But anyway, they claimed that Palestine belonged to them. Why? Because Allah gave it to their father Ibrahim, and as Isaac inherited it, he gave it to Yaqub. Yaqub is the father of Israelis. His name is Israel. And they are the sons of Israel, so they inherit Palestine. And that went for 5,000 years. They never inherited Palestine. King Dawood, Musa was there, Isa was there, but they never said this is the kingdom of Israel. And even Dawood, alayhi he didn't say this is the kingdom of Israel. Dawood was a king himself, King David. So they slept on it for 5,000 years, and then they came in 1886, established a political branch of the Jewish people called the Zionists. And the Zionists start claiming Palestine. And obviously, they can't take Palestine. There's people living in it. It's not an empty land. But when the British occupied Palestine in 1916, in 1917, the Foreign Secretary of Britain, Balfour, he stood in the Parliament and he said, we're giving an empty land called Palestine to people who have no land called the Jewish to establish Israel. So obviously, in reality, the British gave a land they don't own, Palestine, to people they don't like, the Jewish, to occupied a land has people there. So from 1917 until 1948, they kept bringing, because they are living there. Our British were in Palestine. Nobody can come and stop the Jewish coming to Palestine. The British there protecting them. And a lot of Zionists came to Israel and settled there until 1948, when the British left Palestine and handed over everything to the Zionists over there. And they established the State of Israel in 1948. So you come to the British, do you believe in God? Majority of them, no. Go to the Americans, do you believe in God? No. The French, the German. How do you believe the God who doesn't exist give a land you don't own to the people you don't like? The British and the American, the European, most of them didn't like the Jewish. This is why anybody now against a Jew called anti-Semitic. If somebody anti-Semitic, it means that he's anti-Jew and anti-Israeli. Because Sam, we come from Sam, the Arab. The Arab come from Ibrahim, from Sam. So if you are anti-Semitic, you will be anti-Jew and anti-Arab. Do you know that? If you're anti-Semitic, you're anti-Arab. You're anti-me and Omar and who's Arab here? So this is anti-Semitic. But anyway, they didn't actually get rid of the Jew like Hitler did. He didn't like the Jew. He burned them to death in the Holocaust. But the British and the French and the German, and not the German, the American, get rid of them, put them in Palestine. And we will support them to stay there. And they did. Now,
don't some Christians think now when all the Jews are in Palestine, then Jesus will come back and kill all the Jews?
Now, the other side of the story, I'll come to your point. The evangelical Christian, they believe once the state of Israel is established, Jesus will come back. The Jew believes Jesus will come back. The Muslim believes Jesus will come back. No, the Jew will believe Jesus will come, because they didn't actually accept Jesus as being Jesus. They said he wasn't Jesus himself. They didn't believe in him. Unfortunately, when the false Messiah comes, they believe he is Jesus. And then when Jesus comes, the true Jesus comes, he will get rid of the Jew. Hamas are not going to get rid of the Jew because that's the job of Jesus. And I don't think they look into it this way. The evangelical American, there are 18 million of them in America, put pressure on the American government to support Israel full stop, continuously. Why? Because they want Jesus to come back. Yeah. So the Israel in the mind of the evangelical and the Israelis is from Nile to Euphrates, middle of Syria, Nahr al-Furat, Euphrates River. So in 1948, they established Israel. In 1956, Abdel Nasser, who was the president of Egypt, he nationalized the Suez Canal. Suez Canal was dug by the Egyptian, but it was owned by a company owned by the French and the British. So when he nationalized it, they went to Egypt to occupy the Suez Canal, and they led a war against Egypt. And the war was Britain, France, and Israel. So from that time appeared that Israel wants to get to the Nile. So they didn't win the war. Americans intervened and stopped the war. And Abdel Nasser in 1958, he formed a unification between Egypt and Syria. They called it the United Arab State, الجمهورية العربية المتحدة. So Syria and Egypt became one country. And that until 1961, when the Muslim Brotherhood in Damascus in Syria went against Abdel Nasser and they split from Egypt. So we're back to square one, the fragmented countries everywhere. In 1967, the Israelis thought that, the Arab are so fragmented and they split, and I have the chance now to go and occupy part of Syria, part of Egypt, and they did. They occupied Sinai, they led the war in 1967, and within 6 days they managed to get all Sinai and all Gaza and the West Bank and Golan Heights, part of Syria. And the war stopped, but they stayed there. And there were skirmish fight between them and the Egyptian and the Syrian until 1973. 1973, the Egyptian president Sadat and the Syrian president Hafez Assad, they managed to prepare themselves, and they did 300 false attack. The Israelis think, they are going to attack us now. They don't. 300. Until they were happy that there's a joke. They're not going to attack us. But they did. 1973. And the Egyptian crossed the Suez Canal and destroyed the Bar-Lev wall. And the Syrian went into Golan. Obviously, Jordan wasn't involved in that war because West Bank was more like Palestinians than being part of Jordan. And unfortunately, they lost the war because the American and the British and the French came straight away to rescue the Israelis, and they lost the war, 1773. But they kept skirmishing, fighting, and throwing things in them. Until 1979, when the President Sadat thought that I'm not going to win the war, I'm not going to have another war. My country is so poor and they can't find food. We have to get all the money to buy weapons. And there's no point fighting Israel while it's supported continuously by the American and the British and the European. So he took the plane in 1979. He landed in Tel Aviv, unannounced. And he signed peace treaty with Israel. So no war between Egypt and Israel. Followed by a few years later by Jordan. They signed also peace treaty with Palestine. A few years later, actually, the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt managed to kill Sadat. They shot him. They were in a military parade, and they shot him dead. Mubarak was his deputy. He became president. Now, that went on 2006. A group. Now, there were a lot of talk about establishing two states of Israel, of Palestine, one in Gaza, one in West Bank. PLO, Palestinian Liberation Organization, was established, some time back. They tried to free Palestine through. If you live the history, they were successful when they started uprising, fighting the Israelis with the stones. They called it Intifada. You see the Palestinians hitting the Israelis with stones. And all the West start hearing of, Palestinian and Israel and things. You have to free these people. And that went successful attempt from the Palestinians to get independent from Israel until the Palestinians made the killing mistake that they started kidnapping people and killing them and exploding suicidal missions. And that suicidal missions gave the Palestinians a very bad name in the West. You go into a cafe, you explode. You kill yourself, your head is there, your arm is there, your legs are there, and you kill some people around you, innocent people you never met. The first one they did in Munich, when they kidnapped a football team. And people, it's World Cup. Everybody looking into the World Cup, and these people kidnapped the team. And so they went into an extreme militant way to free Palestine, and they kept losing from A to B to C to D. Now,
Was it the Olympics?
Olympic, was it? Yeah. Probably, you're right, yeah. But was all the eyes onto what's going on in the sport there, and they kidnapped this team. And they started exploding here, there, and everywhere. Now, in 2001, a big event happened in New York when bin Laden led a group of fanatics like him, and they destroyed the Twin Towers in America. That's a major terrorist act. Innocent people sitting in their offices. 5,000 died. 385 of them were Muslims. There were mosques in these Twin Towers. He doesn't care. Bin Laden, he has a history with the American. When the Russian occupied Afghanistan, they want to free Afghanistan. So what they did, they employed Bin Laden, the SIEA, to lead this mujahideen and do jihad in Afghanistan and kick the Russian out of Afghanistan. They kicked the Russian out of Afghanistan, but I don't know what happened between Bin Laden and the CIA, and the rumor that they refused to pay him. You pay me whatever, you make me this. When they refused to pay him, they said he took revenge from them by hitting the Twin Towers. But to gain the Muslims and the Arab sympathy, I'm fighting the Kafirin. You're not fighting the Kafirin. You actually have your own aim, your own motive, your own whatever. Now you have two groups at that time were doing these terrorist attacks. One called the Palestinians, Hamas, and wasn't in existence yet, PLO at that time, and the IRA in Northern Ireland. IRA are very clever, very genius. Any act we do now will be taken by America as terrorism. America always sided with the IRA, supporting them in Ireland. But when they discovered the terrorism came to America, they started looking into all terror attacks across the globe and would be against them. So the IRA, very clever, stopped all their attacks because they would be attacked by America. They're terrorists now. So they stopped. And they managed to get the Friday Agreement and whatever, and peace in Ireland. And the PLO did the opposite. They made more terrorists. When the Twin Towers were hit, the Palestinians were handing sweet and baklava and then to people. They are extremely happy because Americans were hit, while the RA expressed their sorrow and, we are sorry that you... So this tells you there's no thinking. You need to look into what's happening now. Now in 2006, Hamas started. They kicked PLO out of Gaza. So PLO remained in West Bank, and they have the Yasser Arafat at that time now, Mahmoud Abbas, the president. And they took a very serious way in attacking Israel. They think if they throw missiles on Israel, Israel will pack their bags and go to Europe. But they don't. They throw missiles on Israel, they kill 3-4 Israelis. The planes come and kill 2,000 Palestinians. Destroy 20, 30, 40 buildings. Now what they did last Saturday, they went inside the settlements and they killed the people there, and they took hostages. They thought Israel would back and go. So far, the Israelis have killed more than 3,000 Palestinians, destroyed more than 4,000 houses. They disposed 500,000 now living in the streets. What sort of mentality is this? You're not militarily correct. You're not religiously correct. If somebody steals your house, are you allowed in Islam to go and kill him and take the house? Where in the Quran, where in the Hadith? If somebody steals your house, you go, take him to court. Or at least you go and ask for your house. If he fights you, want to kill you, you fight back. But you don't kill him. If you don't pay the mortgage, the bank will come kill you and take the house. They don't do that. Now.
Apparently there's like 1 million Palestinians at the Egyptian border and not going to open.
Yeah, they gave them 24 hours to empty a city like Birmingham. Imagine if somebody gave Birmingham 24 hours to leave Birmingham. There's no roads, there's no cars, and they have 2 roads. You can go over that way or that way. So they went through the roads and they went and bombed them on the road. They killed them on the road. Now, what happened now when they were a fight between Israel and Lebanon? They went and killed everybody in Sabra and Shatila. Everyone, man, woman, children. Riyad Sharon was the prime minister at that time. And the world didn't say anything. Oh, Muslims killed. Oh, we want Muslims around. We have plenty here in Birmingham. We don't need any more. So this is the mentality of the West. Stop fighting, you two over there. Stop. I'm not going to come and put, a peacekeeping force between them. But this mentality actually is obviously leading nowhere, and gave them, now it's more likely they will occupy Gaza and they will never go out of it. More likely, unless probably they will kill half the people there. People imagine, what made me wonder, you have a country, Gaza Strip, it's 5 miles wide, 20 miles long. So you have, 400 square miles? And imagine the Israelis cut the water, the electricity, the food. So you have no water, no food, no electricity. He's starving you to death. But you go to Hamas, you've been there from 2006 till now. Why you don't have independence? You have enough water, enough food supply for yourself, enough electricity, or the Jewish will not allow us. But how you managed to throw 6,000 missiles? The Jew allowed you to build missiles and stop your building water supply? Who would believe that? What Hamas was doing, just building missiles? Why not building water supplies? Why not building food supplies? Why not building electricity supplies? So there's a lot of questions need answer. So that the current Islamic history, full of a lot of idiots in most countries, most Muslim countries. In Libya, they have been fighting from 2011. They're all Muslims in Libya. They're all Sunni. They're all Maliki even. One madhab. And they're fighting each other. They have a dam in Derna. They were cracking it for years. They didn't care repairing the dam. A little stone came, 15,000 dead. In Morocco, small earthquake, the house is demolished, all built out of mud.
In the mountains.
In the mountains, dropped on top of people. What are you doing there? Why didn't you build your houses to be strong enough to stand some earthquake and things now?
There are also earthquakes in Afghanistan.
Yeah. Again, a Muslim celebrating Milad al-Nabi in Pakistan the other week, they killed 52 of them. Who gave you the right to go inside the mosque and kill people celebrating Milad al-Nabi? Bid'ah. So these sort of Muslims, they're not going to win against Israel. Israel is just small strip. If you look into the shape of Palestine, go like this. West Bank took a large part of Palestine. Now they are saying, oh, they send settlers. Go and kill the Palestinian and build a house there and sit. And the Palestinians cannot stop them. So when you come to the current Islamic history, unfortunately, the French came to Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia. They managed to kick them out, but after a long struggle, the Algerians lost 1 million martyrs. But then they were occupied by socialists. The president was socialist, and he kept Algeria backward. In Morocco, there were a king, Mohammed al-Khamis, and you go to Morocco, the very basic only exists. I mean, I went twice to Morocco, to Casablanca and to Marrakesh. I didn't see the advanced technology or science. I went to Tunisia, beautiful country, beautiful land. I went, and then I went after 5 years. Same. They have so much they can do. The only thing they managed to get improved was tourism. Tourism. And tourists were going to Tunisia, give them enough foreign currency. And then out of a sudden, some Morocco fanatic went to the beach and they killed 52 foreigners on the beach. So the foreigners stopped coming. When I went there were no British or French or German or people with real money. You only find people coming from Russia and the Eastern Europe who have little money to spend anyway. And Egypt, socialism took charge, and they want to spread socialism and top of communism, and they went internal trouble from trouble to trouble to trouble, and you go to Egypt and probably population is 90 million, and they're just going from poverty to poverty. In Iraq, there were so many wars inside, and they were occupied Kuwait and managed to get America to kick them out of the Kuwait. And then they tried to kill George Bush, the father. Saddam Hussein tried to kill him, so they say. So his son, George Bush, wanted to take revenge from Iraq. And they pretended they have weapon of mass destruction, and they went to Iraq. They didn't find, obviously, weapon of mass destruction, but they destroyed Iraq as an economy, handed it to the SIEA, now ruling Iraq, and from week to week, weaker to weaker. They are producing oil, but the money of the oil, where is it going? You don't see any improvement. So the Muslims in the current era, they actually forget Syria. Now Syria, half Syrians outside Syria because of the fight in Syria. Hezbollah, who is a Shia, supported Bashar al-Assad in Syria, and they were both killing the people there, and many of the youngsters left Syria, went to Turkey, Jordan, Lebanon. A lot of them now in Sweden and Germany and Britain. Take Lebanon. Lebanon was divided between, it's funny parliament. You have to have, the president has to be Christian, the prime minister have to be a Sunni Muslim, the head of the parliament have to be a Shia, and the Druze have them other rules as well. And obviously if you have 4 or 5 different sects ruling, they would only vote for their sect. And things went bad towards in 1975 when they started fighting each other. And the civil war lasted 10 years. I was working as a doctor at that time in Syria, and a professor called Ibrahim Daver, he Hafez said to him, come to Syria till the war finishing. A professor in the American university. So he came, he worked in my hospital. And I was helping him, and he liked me. He said, when the war stopped, come and work for me in the American hospital in Beirut. So the war stopped, so I went there, and I went to the hospital. I met him. I said, yes, apply and we will employ you and things. But I was terrified. I went to Beirut. If you walk in the street, all the columns, holes in it because of the bullets. They were fighting each other, that all the buildings, all the columns, everything hit by the bullets and things. 4 o'clock, everybody closed, no people in the street. And I said, I don't want to go and work in a war country. So I didn't go to work in Lebanon. The war continued for 10 years. And then peacekeeping came from the Arab, and the Syrian went there, and they became occupied by the Syrian. And the Lebanese, they wanted to get rid of the Syrian because they were occupying. They had a prime minister called Rafiq al-Hariri, very good Muslim, and he was Sunni, very rich. A lot of the Lebanese, including, Dr. Saeed Saeed al-Bilbo, he came on minha and grants from Rafiq al-Hariri. A lot of Lebanese came to Britain to study on his expense. He was very good and things, and they want to get rid of him. And they exploded his car, that the explosion is so massive that 4 lorries hole in the ground created. His son became prime minister, and they couldn't even succeed. Now they have no government, no president, no government, and they're just somebody in charge, temporarily in charge. Jordan probably the most settled country with being tribe, and they all pledge, support to the King Abdullah. He's very clever. He's very well spoken. His mother is English, and very outspoken. He spoke in United Nations really well in supporting the Palestinians. He spoke supporting Islam. He spoke in the European community, in the parliament. Probably he's more settled than anybody else. But because his grandfather, Sharif Hussein, was the king of Saudi, not Saudi Arabia Peninsula at that time, and King Abdulaziz took it from him, he claimed that he owns Saudi. So keep him quiet, they always give him money. Keep quiet. A few billions here, a few billion there. And what surprised me, that Jordan, when I went to Jordan, I go to Jordan because my brothers and my nephews there, and my aunties there, and cousins and things. The British pound used to buy 1.3 Jordanian dinar. Now you buy only 80, 75. So the dinar is strong because they get a lot of probably reserve currency from somewhere. But we assume Saudi actually continuously give him to calm him down, then not to claim Saudi back. What you want to take Sudan. Sudan even worse. Sudan was ruled by Muslim Sunni who failed to contain the Christian and make them happy in Sudan. And they kept fighting the south of Sudan until they split. South Sudan is Christian now, and North Sudan is so-called Sunni. And then they started fighting the people in the west of Sudan, Darfur and things, and the fight never ending. And they managed to get outside support. Now, a gangster who became a fighter against Darfur became a head of fast response army, and now he wants to claim the whole Sudan. So he's fighting the president of Sudan, and Sudan in a fight. Libya is still in a fight. Egyptian, they had a fight with the Muslim Brotherhood for a while, then calmed down. Then Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, they will never help the president, Sisi. They hate him. They hate all the scholars in Azhar. They're so defragmented. So Iraq, fight between the Sunni and the Shia never stopped. There were a lot of explosion in Iraq in the beginning, after the British left and the American. and then Syria is still the fight there. Lebanon is very bankrupt. They haven't got money, they haven't got any economy. So who's going to fight Israel? Out of the blue, Hamas want to free Palestine. So at least study around you. Who is going to support you? Libya fighting each other, or Sudan fighting each other, or Syria fighting each other, or Iraqi fighting each other, or Jordan is a small country. I used to drive from end to end in Jordan in just 6 hours. So the state of the Muslim world now, unfortunately, is very, very poor. Who escaped that is actually Malaysia, probably somehow Indonesia, and somehow Turkey. Turkey now is very clever. Every time they try to get rid of him, he dissolved the parliament, new election. And he gained more seat. So they tried. What Imran Khan did, he should have dissolved the parliament quickly and had new election and stayed. But he was a bit late and they managed to kick him out. Erdogan was a bit more clever. When he feels that they are going to unseat him, he used to dissolve the parliament, new election. So he had 4 or 5 different elections. Now, as Muslims now living in Britain, probably you could be more successful in supporting Islamic ideas than all these majority idiots in Middle East and North Africa. And, there's quite a good people there. I lived there, I was taught there. But we have very few Muslims who are really politically well-oriented, religiously well-oriented. They know what to do, when to do it, and go on and do it. In Britain now, we have so many Muslim MPs. Now, the First Minister in Scotland is a Muslim. What more we could get? Yeah, as for Rishi Sunak became a Prime Minister, probably next will be a Muslim Prime Minister. You might gain more in Europe for Islam than if you go to Middle East or the Southeast. So this is the era which we want to stop at now, 1916 till now. We will go back, inshallah, to restart again. On your way out, I need to stamp down 116 or 114.